And so, it begins. Dark were the skies, and chill was the wind, as the land was covered in a veil of malice. Across the hill did ride a dread army of the night, cloaked in mist and fog, prepared to rain down death and destruction upon the land. And the people did crowd for a saviour, a noble soul to save them from their impending demise. Just as it seemed all was lost, in strode a mighty hero, clad in shimmering metal from head to toe. Wielding a terrible broadsword, he did cleave his foes in two, smashing their ranks asunder with righteous fury. And when the day was done and the enemy strewn across the fields in pieces, the people did turn to the warrior and say, "We shall name this day in your honor. Speak unto us your wisdom." The warrior said one word that day: epic.
One man, one Murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Plz. It begins now. Indeed, folks. Welcome to Blue Plz here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit. Welcome to the show. What a show we've got for you today. It's going to be a little bit unusual because, well, it's funny. I get some new cool equipment, which I'm actually using right now. We're using this show as a test bed for some of the BlizzCon gear. So if you hear anything weird, let me know, and I'll see what I can do to sort it out. This is kind of going to be uncharted waters for me. I've never used something this expensive, so hopefully it'll be okay. Anyway, things are going to be changing around a little bit in the show because as soon as I get new equipment, something always breaks. And this time, it was my portable hard drive, which is where I keep all of my audio stuff, including my Audition audio editing program for doing my pre-recorded stuff. What that means is, while I managed to get it fixed, I didn't have time to finish getting Nubcake News sorted out. So I'm sorry, guys. I'm absolutely really sorry. There won't be any Nubcake News today. So, yeah, really sorry about that. Don't worry, we'll get you something really cool from BlizzCon. Anyway, unfortunately, it also means that since I'm actually going to be flying back to the UK on Friday to go see my family briefly before we pop over to BlizzCon, I will not be doing a show on Friday. So yeah, double whammy of disillusionment. Sorry guys, that's just the way it is. Life throws some horrible things at you, I tend to find. But never mind. What I will say is that we will be doing both Blue Plz and an epic. Yes, I did just say
Epic!
From BlizzCon, along with many other really cool things. So yeah, tune into our BlizzCon coverage going in a bit October the 10th to October the 11th on WCRadio.com, the only place to get your free live coverage of the convention, no matter where you happen to be. Oh yeah. Now, what else have we got coming up in the next of the show? Talking about what is actually going to be announced at BlizzCon, if anything. I mean, surely there's going to be something. So we're going to speculate, and we're going to make things up, and we're going to do that for like 15 minutes. And it'll be called, will there really be another MMO announced at BlizzCon? Will there? Who knows? We'll find out. Also, we're talking about this week's hot topic, and this week's hot topic is on PvP. Oh dear. As if the incompetence knew no bounds, indeed that is actually what's been happening. Forcing people to do arenas in order to get Battlegrounds gear. Oh yeah. Some nice, juicy red meat to go on with there. So we'll be talking about that a bit later on. And something a little bit more positive, we're talking about the future of raiding in Wrath and Beyond. The bit of the game that actually matters, at least in my opinion. And I'll be talking about my idea for non-linear dynamic content. Yes, it doesn't mean anything, it's just meant to sound clever. Anyway, also we will have the one and only Illusion of Choice coming up later in the show.
It's the Illusion of Choice.
Casper the Friendly Ghost will be presenting that one. The Illusion of Choice will allow you to submit the topic for the last 15 minutes of the show. You can do that by emailing themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com. Yes, indeed. You can email that, send in a topic suggestion for the last 15 minutes of the show, and that is what will be happening. Now, as I said, the show's going to be kind of a little bit strange this week, as I've been going to be moving things around. Just this once. Don't worry, I'm not going to upset the natural order of things. That would be terrible. I know you wouldn't like that. So, I'm going to bring back something that I haven't done in a while and probably will hopefully never do again. But I just felt it had to be spoken about, so...
Embassy
of the week. Yes. Now, I canned this segment a very long time ago because it was too negative, but in this case, I think I'm going to make an exception. Now, let me set the scene for you. Now, WoW Radio and WoW Insider do podcasts together, yeah? And it's fun, and loads of people listen to it. And you know what? I love WoW Insider. I think WoW Insider is like one of the best fan sites there is. Why? Because they kind of do what we do. They take news articles and they turn it into original content. As in, they provide punditry, comment, analysis, and opinion, yeah? So they're the kind of people that you see on the news networks who aren't reporting the news, they're actually discussing it. You know, they're doing debate shows, they're doing talk shows, that kind of thing. That's effectively what they're doing. In my opinion, they're like the essence of what a blog should be. You know, taking news, giving it a good spin with some people that know what they're talking about and providing a good staging point for debate and discussion. Yeah? I think they do that very, very well. I think they do that better than anybody else, you know, better than any other fan site out there. So I like to commend them for that. Now, on this fan site, there's a section called WoW Movie Watch, and a long time ago, it used to be operated by just some random guys from the blog, and I'll be honest, it wasn't very good. I didn't really read it because the quality of writing associated with the article wasn't too great. So they brought over someone from Massively by the name of Moo Money, the most ridiculously named person I've ever heard of, who is actually a professional Second Life machinimator. Yeah, so got a big background in the machinima scene, does it for a living. So they brought her over and she started doing this stuff, and funnily enough, we actually ended up getting into a lot of fights. We ended up disagreeing over a lot of stuff. But it was cool, because eventually we talked and we got to the conclusion that, we both cared an awful lot about the machinima scene, we just happened to see it in different ways. So she got me to write some counterpoint reviews for what she was writing, because she's got like this 300 word limit, 300 character limit. That would be terrible. 300 word limit for the article. So I was writing all this counterpoint reviews. We got some good discussion going. It was pretty cool. And the idea was to not only promote machinima, but educate people on what it takes to make good machinima, and what machinima, is objectively good. Trying to take the genre and the medium seriously, because let's face it, up to now, not really been taken seriously. And that's true, it really has, and it's a crying shame, because it's an emergent form of new media. And I think it has an awful lot of potential. It really does. Beyond the whole, let's use it for advertising because it's a nice gimmick, or let's produce a funny video for YouTube. It's got a lot of potential beyond that. And I feel that it has to be taken seriously, and that means it has to have its commentators and it has to have its critics. People that know what they're talking about, and people who are able to constructively criticize a video so as to say, right, this is what is objectively good about this video, this is what isn't, this is what you need to improve, and do so from a basis of knowledge and experience. Because I'm sorry, guys, let me just put this out there. Not everyone's opinion is created equal. It's true. Whatever the internet or free speech might tell you, yeah, you can say whatever you like, but that doesn't mean that people are going to take you seriously. The reason there are critics in life is because they have a huge background of experience and knowledge, and they're actually paid to talk about their opinions. And indeed, there are people who do an awful lot with opinions, indeed run the country with it. They're called politicians. So, if you really think your opinion's equal to that of a politician, well, it's probably not the case. It's unfortunate that's the way, but that's just the way it is. Now, anyway, so Moo left recently for greener pastures, and they brought in a new person. And she goes by the name of Natalie Moots, which is rather ironic, because I think pretty much everything she said so far is pretty much moot. Now, let me just get this out there. I don't object to this person. I'm not going to start attacking this person, because that's not fair. I don't do that. I don't attack people. I attack what they say, and then if they're going to be jackasses about it, then I attack them. I'm reasonable. I give them a chance. It's unfair, isn't it? But anyway, so she posted this article today, which clocked in at a grand total of 107 words about a really old machinima video by the guy who did Jimmy the Warcraft story. It's called Peppertos. Now, I don't mind that so much. It's pretty cool to actually showcase some old stuff. The problem is, the article was 107 words long. Just bear in mind that the guys at WoW Insider actually get paid for writing this. And that's cool, I would love to get paid for doing podcasts, besides getting the occasional donut and donation to fix my Windows, but, it's all good. So, she comes along and she writes this, and I read this and I'm like, this wasn't really an article, was it? This was more of a stub. It was a footnote to the video. And I'm used to reading some reasonably good articles with some reasonably good criticism and a bit of commentary and all that kind of thing. So I reply and I say this in the comment thread. I say, can we actually get some more analysis of the movie in this column again? Just showing us a movie and giving us a very brief overview of the plot and creative doesn't really cut it. Now, I thought, well, maybe she might not respond too well to that, but I didn't really expect to be attacked by someone who gets so uber defensive online. I mean, someone who's writing a blog, and indeed has apparently written another blog before, should be used to people commenting on her stuff and saying, well, hey, this ain't too good. So she replied, and I'm going to try and accurately depict how this would sound, in real life. And just going to point out, I'm not sexist, I just really don't like stupid people. Okay? So, let's try this.
Okay, sure. First, let me do some analysis of the comment. This comment offered no redeeming value to the discussion of the movie, did not even comment on the movie, and in fact, I'll bet the commentator didn't even watch the movie in question, but merely came to bash the blogger who wrote the post. Woo, I forgot how good it feels to stretch my old analytical muscles. Feels great. Now, as to my analysis of the movie, I did mention that I needed some music. I guess that wasn't analytical enough. I suppose I could go a shot-by-shot breakdown of all the cinematics, describe the voiceover. Oh wait, no, I can include the whole script of the film, yeah. Them's good analysis, right there. I'm not sure how much of this column you've read in the past, but we have less than 300 words to talk about the film. It's an opinion blog. I stated my opinion. There's also a twist within the film, so I try not to spoil it. In the future, though, just for you, Biscuit, I'll remember to spoil the film for everyone else.
And that was by Natalie. Now, I'm sorry, this is the point. This is an opinion blog, you know. That's what blogs are good for. You know, blogs are good for opinions. They provide spin, they provide original commentary on news. You know, you don't go to a blog to get your news. You go to a blog to get your opinions. It's like you don't go to WoW Radio for your news. You come to us to hear us rant about whatever for an hour and a half. You know, and obviously some guys like it because they're sitting here listening to my show. So, you know, that's not an opinion. That's a stub. All of this information could have been gotten off the YouTube channel or off Google. It's like, this is who wrote it. This is, you know, the machinima. Like, where's the criticism of it? Where's the commentary? You don't have to criticize something down to the wire, but, I mean, there was a lot wrong with that film, you know. And there was a lot of stuff you could have praised about it. You didn't do either. 107 words. What happened to the other 193? I mean, really. But, yeah, this gets wet. This really gets better. By the way, if you want to see this, just go to Wow Inside and look at the latest movie watch. All of these guys come in and white knight her and start attacking me for everything. It's like, you're being such a baby, blah, blah, blah. Oh, how is this Natalie's fault, blah, blah. Look, I'm sorry. You're being paid to write a blog. You know? You're being paid to write an opinion blog. Yeah? And it's funny because she says it's an opinion blog, and then people, though, later on, her fanboys contradict it, saying, no, we don't want to hear opinions, blah, blah. Why not? If you want to see a video, go to YouTube. Because this is about the quality of a YouTube comment. It really is. Why would you look at, read a column on a day-to-day basis, if not to hear some opinion, some commentary, and some constructive criticism? You know, that's what helps the machinima scene. You know, this is a problem that all of new media seems to have right now. And I don't know if it's specific to WoW, whether WoW just makes you stupid, or whether or not it spreads across all manner of different mediums and genres. But the fact of the matter is, people really can't take criticism. And I mean, that was barely criticism. It's like, you wrote a bad article. Okay, deal with it. I'm not attacking you or your family. I'm not going to come and set your house on fire. I'm not going to take your cat, swing it around by its tail, and throw it into the nearest lake with a brick attached to it. It's not going to happen. I'm not that mean. I am very mean, but I'm not that mean. You know, it's like, if I have to actually travel in order to be mean, I'm just kind of a bit too lazy to do that, you know. So, what is wrong with criticizing someone's article and someone's writing? It's like, if you want to write better, you're going to have someone tell you what you're doing wrong. What are you doing wrong? You're getting paid to write 107 words, none of which, barely any of which at least is original content. There's nothing about the video there, and you'd have the nerve to criticize me for not talking about the video. It's hilarious. I mean, it really is. You know, go and read some of these comments because they're terrible. I love the fact that a lot of them also use the comment burying system. You can actually rate up and down a comment. Like, that's going to make a difference. Oh no, you made my comment slightly more grey. But then you rated up the comments that were replying to it, so highlighted my comment. What exactly were you trying to achieve? I mean, really. Oh no, it's grey! No, good lord. It's okay, guys. Those of you with really terrible monitors can't read it. Ugh. It's just disgraceful. I don't see why, you have to white knight anyone. Calling me a troll and insulting me just because I criticize someone, that's pretty terrible, In my view, this is kind of a culture, especially within World of Warcraft, that really has to change. It's low-content rubbish, It's like, we're trying to cut down the amount of information we have to digest every day, down to tiny little chunks, It's like, we don't like steak anymore. We don't eat steak, because steak is too much effort. You have to cook it, you have to get it right, and then you have to cut into it, and then you have to eat it, Why don't we just eat chips? Because chips are easy. Actually, no, you have to open the bag for those. Okay, what can we do? Well, I suppose we could eat the bag, and then we get the chips with it. And it'll be okay. That'll be fine. Let's do that. It's like, why don't I just stop doing my 1.5 hour show and do 6-minute shows? Because obviously, the WoW community is way too stupid to deal with it. And it makes me so angry to hear that, it's like, oh, we don't want this, we don't want that. It's like, yeah, you don't, because you've got the attention span of your average mayfly, but other people do. Everyone listening to this show right now is willing to sit down, listen to me talk for an hour and a half. Are you telling me that those people are stupid? Are you telling me that they don't want analysis and opinion? Are you telling me that the readers of WoW Insider and the blogs, the huge blogosphere that we've got with World of Warcraft, and all of the other podcasts as well, you're telling me they don't want to hear opinion? Do you think they are that stupid? Because that is insulting to them. It really is. That is absolutely and totally insulting. There are a lot of people that actually care about the state of new media right now and the direction that machinima is going, who want it to be taken seriously because it's a good genre, it's a good medium, it's a good art form, and it should be treated with respect. And you can't treat it with respect if you're treating it as some bite-sized piece of bloody beef jerky that you just stuff down your fat gullet and then off you go and you don't think about it anymore. Bite-sized content? No. That's what children have. That's what you do to teach children how to write and read. You teach them their numbers one by one. You teach them their letters one by one. You don't get them to read a novel, you get them to read small sentences with big pictures next to them. Are you telling me that you want to be treated like children? Because you know what? I don't think the listeners of this show want to be treated like children. I think they deserve to be treated with respect, and so does the rest of the WoW community, including the readers of WoW Insider, who produce fantastic content on a day-to-day basis. So to have one of their bloggers come out and say that, and then to have the community rally around the woman, again, not sexist, I'm just saying, white knighting anyone? I mean, really? Was anything she said actually legitimate? Are you defending posting 107 words of nothing? And you're saying that's a good thing? Is that what you want out of the column? Because if you do, can you go elsewhere? I mean, can you go to YouTube and just hang around there? Because that's where people post 30-second videos with people running into lampposts, or people being hit in the balls by a baseball, or people being hit by a car and then being laughed at, or these tiny little stupid viral things that you see all the time. That's where you can get that. That's a great resource for that. But you know what? I like some intelligence in this community, and I'd like the intelligent people in this community to be treated with respect. Because to be honest, I think there's an awful lot more of them than you actually think. And most of them are listening to this show. They really are. So yes, that was my episode of the week. I'll be right back after this. An appropriate track coming up from Megadeth now. And I'll be kicking off with the first topic of the day, which is BlizzCon. Will there be another MMO? Who knows? My name's TotalBiscuit. This is Blue Plz. Of course, my opinions represent me and me alone. Enjoy. You're listening to the archive recording of Blue Plz. Music was removed due to copyright reasons. If you'd like to hear the live music, then tune in live at 5:30 EST. That's 10:30 British Standard Time on Fridays at wcradio.com.
Hi, this is Dara Veradar, the 2005 WoW Idol and the creator of the Shade of Iran chant, here to give you a very important piece of advice.
I will not move when I listen to WoW Radio.
Right here on WCRadio.com.
Yes, folks, indeed. My name is TotalBiscuit. This is Blue Plz on WoW Radio, the terrible radio station. Yes, apparently we have no podcasts worth listening to, so what the hell are you guys doing here? Good lord, you're embarrassing us. You're ruining his point by being here. We can't have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of live listeners, and we can't have tens of thousands of podcast listeners to the show, because it's ruining George's point. You're terrible, guys. Seriously, how could you be so mean? Honestly. You have no consideration for other people. Anyway, I don't have any consideration for other people either, so I'm going to barge on regardless. Now, first topic for the week here on Blue Plz. It's the only post-BlizzCon show. Wow. Yeah, I'm that cool that I travelled back, forward through time, and I can now tell you what is going to happen at BlizzCon, even though it's already happened, at least in my head. Need to keep off the pills. Now, it'll be the only pre-BlizzCon Blue Plz, sadly, because I won't be here next week, because I will be in the air. No, I actually do mean in the air. It's not the pills again. I will actually be flying. So, here's the deal. Let's talk about what might happen. Now, I think it's probably safe to say at this point that there is going to be an announcement of some kind. Now, you would think that there would be an announcement of some kind. Now, and why would you think that? Well, there's any number of reasons. Maybe because they're doing an entire convention? Well, that's a usual reason. Maybe historical precedent? Let's see. 2005, they announced The Burning Crusade. 2007, they announced Wrath of the Lich King. WWI, they announced, wait for it, Diablo 3, and of course the Korean thing that they did, they announced StarCraft 2, so they've pretty much got a 100% hit record when it comes to announcing cool stuff at conventions. So one would assume, especially if they're doubling the size of the convention this year, that they're actually going to be showing us something worthwhile that isn't Diablo 3 or StarCraft 2. Not to say they're not worthwhile, because I am looking forward to playing both, that's all I can say, but they're going to announce something. As to what? I have no idea, so let's speculate aimlessly for the next 13 or so minutes. Now, let's have a look at what they could announce. You know, there are three possibilities, at least in my opinion. One, they could resurrect an old franchise. Probably not going to happen, let's face it. Unless they plan on making DS or console versions, no. As much as I would like to see a brand new rock and roll racing game, I don't think that's going to happen. No, there's not going to be another rock and roll racing, maybe for the DS or mobile device, but that'll be it. So, what else? Well, we've got Blackthorn, no. The Death and Return of Superman, oh lord, I hope not. Good lord, that was a terrible game. What else we got? Lost Vikings, probably one of the best examples of classic Blizzard titles. Probably not. I mean, the problem with actually bringing franchises like that back is that Blizzard has got a lot of strength in its three existing franchises. Now, its older stuff, not so much. It wasn't so big back then. It was, its only bad game that it's ever done, The Death and Return of Superman. So there's not a lot of prestige behind those titles. Bringing a game into a new franchise, well, that's a little bit different. Actually creating a brand new franchise. You can do that. You can launch it off the back of the fact that you have three successful franchises, but bringing back an old one, well, not so much, because it's about managing expectations more than anything. If you announce something brand new, you can manage expectations very effectively. If you bring back a really old franchise that wasn't actually all that great to begin with, the expectations are kind of out of your control. So, I honestly don't think they're going to be bringing any of those back. As much as I would like to see rock and roll racing online, take note, Blizz, seriously, I don't think that's actually going to happen. So, let's be a little bit realistic. So, you've got two other possibilities. Either you are going to release... Actually, you've got three possibilities. What am I talking about? Okay, here's the other three possibilities. These are our chief weapons. Yes, this is the Spanish Inquisition. Now, here we go. Either you bring in a brand new IP, you come up with something brand new, or you put something into one of the existing franchises, either a spin-off or a new sequel, or you create an MMO version of one of your existing franchises. Those are the three possibilities that I see happening. So let's go through them. Possibility of a new IP. Well, there hasn't been one in a while. Now, as to whether or not we're going to get any, again, that is questionable. Who knows? Really. There's been no indications of any sort. Except for, of course, one thing, and that's the fact that they hired on programmers for an advanced next-generation MMO. Now, that leads us on to the second possibility, an MMO version of something that already exists. Now, we already have WoW, so that's Warcraft covered, which means we've got StarCraft and we've got Diablo. Now, with a brand new StarCraft and a brand new Diablo game coming out, I don't think it's really going to end up being an MMO based off an existing franchise. I really don't. Now, let's talk about whether or not it's even viable to do that. That's a discussion point that a lot of people have brought up in the past when people have said, well, there's going to be World of StarCraft this year, or there's going to be World of Diablo this year, or whatever. They've always brought these kind of things up. So let's think about it for a minute. Is it viable? Well, let's look at another company that likes to release lots of MMOs. It's called Sony Online Entertainment. Yeah, they're doing really well there. Yeah. They release a bunch of MMOs, don't support them properly, and they all fail, aside from EverQuest, which is their one and only remaining cash cow right now. And of course, 90% of the EverQuest population end up playing WoW anyway. So you've got SOE, which run tons of these MMOs with bare minimum support. And they're all pretty much terrible, because it's unfortunate, a lot of them are really good concepts. Now, there is, of course, another company that I can think of off the top of my head, and there's probably a couple more that I can't, that runs two successful MMOs, and that is, of course, Mythic. Now, EA Mythic. Blech. Yes, Mythic runs Dark Age of Camelot, including all of its expansion content, and it also runs a game that you may have heard of by the name of Warhammer Online. Now, they're so far doing both pretty well. Admittedly, they are using a couple of companies like GOA specifically to help them manage their servers, but they seem to be running both games pretty well. As to whether or not they're going to phase out Dark Age of Camelot? Well, it's kind of been phasing itself out for a long time now. There's a myriad of issues with that game, even though it had some really good PvP. And I think WoW is the natural... War is the natural successor to Dark Age of Camelot. And to be honest, I will eventually see them shutting down Dark Age of Camelot, and I imagine they're probably cutting a lot of their support for it right now. So, whether or not Blizzard would release a new MMO, especially with WoW and the state it is, I don't know. It really depends on the timing. I think if Wrath bombs, then yeah, they will bring out something new. And to be honest, and I'm going to be really pessimistic here, if it's going to hit that November 13th release date, I don't think it's going to be of the usual quality. The concerns that I have, particularly as a raider, is that a lot of the corners are going to be cut in raid content. So the hardcore raiders and the guys that level up fast just get back into raiding, well, they're going to end up being stung, invariably stung by something. And that something is, of course, going to be poorly balanced or otherwise broken raid content. Now, we have tested, of course, Naxxramas, which is the first instance, but then again, we also tested Karazhan. The problems didn't start in Karazhan, the problems started in Gruul's Lair, and went on, of course, to SSC with the amazing 45-minute trash respawns, bugged bosses, bugged Lady Vash, multiple Lady Vashes. Great, awesome. Tempest Keep wasn't much better. So, you're looking into a situation where Wrath may not be as successful or as good as the other expansion. It's a possibility. It's just me being pessimistic. I might be proven utterly wrong at BlizzCon. They might have a new build that is utterly amazing in every respect, and good lord, I hope they do. The beta's been pretty good so far. It hasn't been terrible. It's just, it's not ready. And it's not, as far as I'm concerned, it is not 2 months out. It really isn't. And it's less than 2 months now before they're going to be launching the game. It is not that close. No, it isn't ready. There's plenty of problems with it. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be sorted out. And I do have grave concerns about the endgame content. Also, there was a post by a Blue, I think it was either yesterday or today, which actually stated that one of the Hunter abilities wouldn't actually be in the game until after the expansion shipped, which means they're going to be patching it in afterwards, which means it's not finished, or there's some kind of problem with it. Now, you might say, well, it's only one Hunter ability, who cares? But again, slippery slope argument right there. It can lead to even worse things. How many other things are going to be missing? Who knows? What's going to happen with class balance, because it's nowhere near done yet. What's going to happen with mages, for instance, because there's only one viable tree right now, and apparently warriors are really terrible in beta as well, so I've been told by people in the channel. So, is it the time to announce a new MMO? No, it isn't. Really, it's not. They're already trying to promote Wrath of the Lich King. BlizzCon is going to be the last big chance to do that before launch and convince people that, yes, this is worth playing over War, our first big competitor, even though it's a completely different game. I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to cover it in great detail, but the games are completely different. They attract two completely different crowds, and yeah, there was a lot of people jaded with WoW, and they're going to try War, but if they're not into PvP, they're not going to like it, because the PvE ain't that great. I like the PvP, so I'm a big fan of War. I'm enjoying it quite a lot, but I'm certainly going to be playing on Wrath release because I like my raiding too, and after doing my first dungeon in War, I can safely say that Blizzard are on top of that one. So, what's the other possibility? Well, the other possibility is bringing back another game in an existing franchise. The problem is they're already doing that. StarCraft 2 and Diablo 3, which leaves, of course, the one and only possibility of Warcraft 4. Now, yeah, it's probably about time for Warcraft 4. As to what they're going to be doing as regards to the lore, bearing in mind that Warcraft 4, Warcraft 3 anyway, was a heck of a lot more story-based. I've got to go out there and say it. It might annoy some StarCraft fans, but Warcraft 3 was a heck of a lot more story-based than StarCraft was. Yes, it was. It was. There were cutscenes, there were quests, there were storylines, there were heroes that you progressed and leveled up and all that kind of thing. Yeah, it is probably about time for Warcraft 4. Will they announce it? I don't know. They may not. I mean, Warcraft 3 is certainly not a dead game by any stretch of the imagination, but then you could also argue neither StarCraft or Diablo 2, so it's not like they need that as an excuse. Warcraft 4? Possibly. There is, of course, one other possibility. It's within this possibility, so I'm not going to say, hey, there was actually a fourth possibility, I forgot it, ha ha ha. What I'm actually going to say is, well, there is a possibility for a spin-off title from any of those three series. You've got Diablo, you've got your Warcraft, and, of course, you have StarCraft. So, what do we got? Possibilities. StarCraft Ghost? No. I think we've safely seen that go down the pan. To be honest, if they had actually started redeveloping StarCraft Ghost, bear in mind StarCraft Ghost was originally for the original Xbox, and they said they weren't going to bring it out on PC, and I've played it, and I played it 3 years ago, and it wasn't even close to being done. I don't think they somehow have managed to create a next-gen version without anyone knowing, really. Not a murmur, not a single tweet from anybody about StarCraft Ghost. I think we can safely say it's probably down the can. What about a resurrection of Warcraft Adventures? Please no. No. Now is not the time for a point-and-click. I'm sorry. Point-and-clicks... Yes, it's kind of sad to have seen them go, but you really think people are going to buy it? Really? The mass market appeal that you're looking for with the games, particularly with your current user base, are not going to enjoy point-and-click adventure games. So I think we can safely discard that. Also bear in mind that it was being partly developed by third parties, I recall, and that company's not very good at anything. So let's just ignore that. Now, of course, there could be another Diablo title. What I'd like to see, really, is, them actually go into a little bit of DS development. You might say, well, TotalBiscuit, why DS? StarCraft DS, Diablo DS. Diablo's the absolutely perfect game for a DS. I mean, hack and slash, nothing more than kind of holding your stylus down, killing stuff and getting loot. Wi-Fi multiplayer, again, been done already. We've got Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Rings of Fate, which actually has a 4-player co-op mode, and that's kind of a hack and slash. So it's not like they can't do it. It would actually surprise me a lot if they don't eventually get back into console development, because, yeah, there is a lot of money there, and I'm glad they're supporting the PC market. I really am very glad they're supporting the PC market. It deserves the support, but it would also be pretty cool to see some console versions of stuff. I don't expect next-gen development. I would be very surprised, let me put it that way, if they were developing anything for next-gen. The reason being, they're very, very slow, and they really are. They take an awful lot of time. We saw what happened when they tried to do that with Ghost. By the time that we even saw Ghost played, the 360 was about 2 months from being out. We played it in 2005, and then soon after that, I think it probably was 2006, the 360 came out. The Xbox was already an obsolete platform by that point because no one was developing for it. It's the same with the GameCube. The PS2 had actually asserted its domination by that point. So, because they developed so slowly, and because we've already had the next-gen consoles for a few years, I can't see them actually developing something for next-gen. Again, I might be completely wrong on that, but I don't see it happening. I really don't. Do you? Really. If you want to let me know as to what you think is going to be at BlizzCon this year, particularly with the announcement, then email me at themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com. Maybe I'll read some answers out a little bit later in the show. My name is TotalBiscuit, and this is Blue Plz on WoW Radio, WCRadio.com. Just a reminder, before I go to the music break, we are currently running a contest, which will end on the 4th of October, and it will be announced on Warcraft Anonymous, and it's to win some Blizzard Authenticators. We actually have some Blizzard Authenticators for you to give away, and all we want you to do is go and review one of our shows on iTunes, and please be honest. We want an honest review. We don't want you rating us 5 stars because you think you might get something. If something's wrong with us, let us know, please, tell us. We can take criticism here on WoW Radio. In fact, we thrive on it. Some of our best innovations have come because a listener has come along and criticised us, and we've said, yeah, you know what, you're right, let's see what we can do to fix it. We know it's not a personal issue. We know you're not trying to insult us or make us upset. We're going to fix your problem. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and actually write a constructive criticism piece, because that shows a lot of respect. Yeah, it really does. So, yeah. If you want to enter that contest, all you need to do is do your review and take a screenshot of it, because there's so many different versions of iTunes, we can't actually check them all. We don't have an Icelandic guy, so we can't take the Icelandic iTunes. But yeah, if you take a screenshot, send it to contest@wcradio.com. That is contest@wcradio.com. This is an international contest. Anyone can enter, and there's a chance to win one of 3 Blizzard Authenticators, direct and courtesy of Blizzard Entertainment. My name is TotalBiscuit. This is Blue Plz, and I will be right back after this. And I'll be talking about forcing people to do arenas in order to get battleground gear. Hot topic there, and we're going to be having a lot of fun with it. I'll be right back after this, folks. Enjoy. You're listening to the archive recording of Blue Plz. Music was removed due to copyright reasons. If you'd like to hear the live music, then tune in live at 5:30 EST. That's 10:30 British Standard Time on Fridays at WCRadio.com. Let's face it, everywhere you go, you see adverts for Ventrilo server providers. With so many to choose from, how do you make the decision about which is right for you and your guild? To help you with the decision, we brought in WoW Radio's very own bleeding-edge hardcore raiders to show you which provider the world's top players trust.
Loot the stupid car hound!
No. Tank it over there. You're setting the raid on fire.
Someone pulled ads, guys.
Oh, for God's sakes. Heal the tank. Heal the tank.
Hey, guys, it's okay to DI the tank, right?
Why are you smiting and not healing?
Is
Is that a halibut? Are you DPSing with a halibut?
Leave George alone! You'll hurt his feelings!
You named that halibut?
Guys, I think we're wiping.
What gave you that idea?
Well, we're all standing in the graveyard arguing.
UGT Ventrilo servers, the only choice for the elite of the elite. Hi, I'm TotalBiscuit, the best and sexiest mage on the planet. When you're like me, you don't have downtime between raids and promotional photo shoots. That's why I use UGT Ventrilo servers. I don't have to get my hands dirty trying to fix a broken server, because it was never broken to begin with. UGT servers provide crystal clear voice communication with excellent hands-on support to make sure your server is always up and running. Not only that, their prices are so low, I was able to use the extra money to buy this £32 salmon. What, you didn't think I was going to be outdone by Dustin, did you? Hey guys, want to run some BRD? Get your premium quality Ventrilo server from UGTservers.com. Be the best. Well, second best.
Fully licensed and stamped approved by the Cenarian Circle Women's Auxiliary. You're listening to WOW Radio.
Yes, indeed, folks. My name is TotalBiscuit, and this is Blue Plz on WOW Radio. And if there are any sound issues with this episode, I do apologise. We're testing out new equipment, and as usual, I get to be the test bed. Yay! You know, whatever the case, we'll have it sorted out. Should sound okay. I would hope so. But anyway, now, before I go on to the next topic, I'd just like to say one thing. Isn't Wrathgate like the best thing you have ever seen, ever? I mean, if you haven't seen this, I'm going to have Cooked Auto post this in the channel, so if you're not already there, it's irc.mmoirc.com, hash or pound WOW Radio, or you can use the chat link at the top of our screen at wcradio.com. Have a look at this, and it's just stunning. I mean, I'm not kidding. This is a machinima production done in-house by Blizzard, yeah? It's actually an in-game cutscene, yeah? It's not a cinematic, it's a cutscene. There's a difference. And it's for the kind of sieging of the Wrathgate, and it's got Arthas in it, it's got Saurfang the Younger, and all of this other cool stuff. Now, if you're not into spoilers, don't watch the video. If you don't want it to all be spoiled, don't watch the video, but those of you who do want to watch it, good lord, that is the best thing to ever happen to the WoW storyline ever. I know, I don't like the WoW storyline, I don't like Warcraft lore, I don't care, you know. I like 40k lore, you know, I'm a big buff about Warhammer 40k and all that kind of stuff, so I'm not really too fussed about the Warcraft lore, but really, is that just not the best thing? It's just stunning, the way that it actually ignites those faction tensions again, and brings in a whole third-party element of aggression, and just the pure savagery of the whole thing. I gotta say, the machinima team at Blizzard, who I believe includes Tristan Pope and Terran, who used to be part of Rufus Cubed and did the Return machinima, if you remember that. He used to be paired up with Ezra. They did the Return machinima, which I love very much. They have done a stellar job, and everyone else there at Blizzard, well done. Well done, because that is just unbelievable. More, please. More of that. If you want to prove that WoW can be a sufficiently dark game with good conflict, then that would be the way to go about it. However, this is the way that you don't go about it, and this is my next topic for today. Now, it has come out in the past week or so that the Battleground gear in Wrath is going to require you to spend a small amount of arena points, as well as honor, in order to receive it. So what happened? Well, what do you think happened? I mean, really, do I have to tell you what could have possibly happened when they said that? Yep, war! Good God, you all. What it isn't good for, well, on the WoW forums, there isn't anything that it's not good for. I mean, it's all they seem to care about. So, I'm going to analyse this decision, and I'm going to tell you what I think it means for the game. Because, in my opinion, this ain't a good thing. And yes, I have been a little bit more upbeat about WoW since I actually started doing Season 3 of the show, and I'm very glad about that. But, that is not going to stop me from being honest. Yep, there's a lot of cool things in Wrath, I'm liking the look of it, but this is a bad idea, and here's why. Now, the issues that I've been having with PvP lately, particularly since the release of Arenas in the Burning Crusade, is that PvP is starting to get in the way of the good stuff, and that's raiding. It's starting to get in the way of raiding. That bothers me more than anything, because raiding from the very start has always been the biggest thing. Now, yes, I covered this last week, so I'm not going to go into that. I just want to kind of lay it out there for you. That is my initial view. Raiding is the important thing in WoW, and PvP is kind of a side project. Now, obviously, this is not what Blizzard now thinks. Now, since TBC, they've actually been investing a lot of time and indeed a lot of money into pushing the arena scene as an e-sport. Now, when PvP Battlegrounds first came out, I thought the idea was pretty cool, and I still do. I think the PvP Battlegrounds are a very cool thing. I think they're very good for playing a little bit of an alternative playstyle, doing some stuff between quests, doing some stuff between raids, and just going and kicking someone's head in, which, quite frankly, not a bad thing. I'm always up for that. It's good fun. So, Battlegrounds were good, and the system of Battlegrounds, if you remember back in the day, used to work this way. There were two things you could get from Battlegrounds. You could earn PvP rank, and you could go all the way up to rank 14, and rank 14 gave you access to High Warlord / Grand Marshal gear. You could also acquire rep-based items associated with the particular Battlegrounds that you were fighting in. So, Alterac Valley, Warsong Gulch, and then later Rathi Basin, they all had items which you could get, and you could rep up with the faction associated with that battleground. And it was pretty easy to actually get that stuff. It cost a little bit of money, but all you really needed in reality was rep, and there were some pretty cool items. I seem to recall the Unstoppable Force. Anyone remember that one? That's a bit of a classic. The Unstoppable Force, we had stuff like the Ice Barbed Spear, which was actually a quest reward, one of the best things you could get as a hunter pre-like AQ40. It was kind of crazy. You also had stuff from Arathi Base. You had a really nice staff. The Iron something staff. I think Ironwood, Iron Skin staff or something like that. Iron Bark, maybe. And it was a really good PvP staff. It was actually not bad in PvE either. It was pretty sweet. You also had a dagger, which was pretty cool too. So you had all this stuff you could get from Battlegrounds, and Battlegrounds became something of a legitimate form of play. And that's good. A legitimate play style, always nice to have. It's always nice to have an alternative to raiding, because that's not what everyone likes to do. Now, that was okay until they changed things. They changed things around a little bit. They got rid of the ranking system entirely, and they basically made it so you had to save up lots of honor points and tokens in order to buy stuff. Now, what that caused at the time was you to see players running around in like tier 0 gear, Shadowcraft, with high warlord weapons, because the weapons were the thing which did the most for you, like the weapons and the shoulders. Those were always the big bits of gear. So people would buy the weapons and the shoulders, and it was kind of ridiculous. You say any old scrub running around with a high warlord weapon, and some of these weapons were pretty good. They really were. Like the high warlord's war staff at the time was pretty amazing. You were looking at a weapon which was only really outclassed staff-wise by the staff of Shadowflame, and even then, not an awful lot. So, yeah, and the Staff of Shadowflame was a big deal at the time. You've got to bear in mind that the Staff of Shadowflame was almost as good as the AQ40 weapons you were getting. It was better than the AQ20 weapon, the Staff of Ruin, which was actually really good as well. And you also had a High Warlord Spellblade, which was introduced a little bit later on. But yeah, the staff was awesome. I remember seeing people with that, and I'm thinking, hey, that looks great. And good lord, the stats on that thing, wow. And this thing had I can't remember how much stamina it had, but it had a lot of stamina pre-TBC, when that was actually a big deal, and resilience wasn't even part of the picture. So they changed that around, and I can't say I was too pleased by that, but okay, we can go with that. Because the way Battlegrounds were is that the sheer amount of time you had to actually play to rank through this stuff was ridiculous, and it was kind of an unfair system. You had cabals and groups of people actually exploiting the system, and it was like cartel more than anything. They'd have all these people group up, and if you weren't in that group, you wouldn't be getting rank 14 because of the way that the placement system worked. Only one person would be able to get rank 14 every week. So they have to pre-arrange it, and they were using pre-mades to stomp whatever. They'd use exploits, they'd do everything, So it was kind of ugly back then, it really was. And that wasn't such a good thing. So along came Wrath. No, it didn't. Along came TBC. I'm horrible at this. It's the economic crisis. I'm going to blame that. I'm so worried that the money on my desk is suddenly going to disappear and be given to a big Wall Street corporation. Anyway, the Burning Crusade brought in arenas, and arenas were like builders a new way of playing. Unfortunately, they have done little more than almost completely supersede doing Battlegrounds. And I'm not kidding, they really have. They've been promoted, and Battlegrounds have fallen by the wayside. There have been some changes made to BGs, but you had an issue where they dumbed down Alterac Valley to the max, so that all it actually requires now is to run past each other and kill the enemy lord. Ha ha ha, great. That isn't fun. That's like doing a public quest in war, but without any objectives, It's like doing it on a core RVR server where you can't actually kill the opposing team. And that's PvE. That is not PvP. If you're not killing the opposing team, it's not PvP. I'm sorry, that's just not how it goes. So, they did that, and Warsaw and Gulch remain pretty much the same. They got a Arathi base, and they got the Eye of the Storm, which is the worst thing I've seen. I can't even fathom how to do that battleground. I don't know what it is about that battleground. I just hate it. Maybe it's all the purple, you know. If I want to see lots of purple, I go and raid Nex, you know. If I want to see lots of purple, that's where I go. I don't want to see the purple terrain and not being able to see anything. And, oh, look, I've randomly fallen off the battleground. It's hopeless. I can't even work out what I'm supposed to be doing there. Maybe it's just because I'm dumb and stupid and don't understand the higher plane of thinking. But who knows? Anyway, the arenas have become a big deal. Unfortunately, with Wrath, it seems like they're going to become the only deal. Because the idea is that in Wrath, you're not going to be able to buy battleground gear. And, you know, bear in mind, this is the basic stuff. You know, whether or not they're going to be changing that in Wrath, I do not know. There is some gear that I've seen, but it's all named Gladiators now. It's not like, you know, the High Warlords gear and stuff like that. I haven't seen it in the beta yet. It may be there. Maybe I'm just an idiot and I missed it. But it doesn't seem to be there in any shape or form. Now, Battlegrounds gear has been taking a really heavy beating at the hands of that anyway. And indeed, they actually introduced a system whereby you could go and earn your honor in the Battlegrounds and you could buy arena gear with it. Now, and to be honest, the gear required for both is pretty similar. Now, because of the introduction of resilience, that's just the way it is. You know, you do better if you have resilience. Otherwise, you get squashed. You really do. And that includes being in a battleground. So, it's not like battleground gear actually really has any relevance to anybody anymore. It's all about the arena gear. Now, I would have hoped that they would have actually seen this situation and thought, right, well, this is not a good thing. Variety is a good thing. If we're going to have our whole suite of PvP stuff, we want to make sure that they're separate entities. At least that's how I would have done it. I would say, right, arenas, that's a legitimate playstyle. Battlegrounds, that's a legitimate playstyle. Raiding, that's a legitimate playstyle. These are all legitimate playstyles, and if we put them in the game, we need to cater to them. We can't favour one over the other. That's not good, that's the noise people. So, you would have thought that they'd have taken the battleground and said, right, okay, we're going to be adding another battleground. We're going to have this outdoor PvP area as well, so that's a fourth way of playing the game, outdoor PvP style. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Outdoor PvP didn't work before Wrath, so don't even go there. Don't even tell me that happened, because it didn't. I know. I've been on a PvP server since the launch, and outdoor PvP's terrible. Bring back the days of Tassel Show vs. Taran Mill just for fun, but that really was about it. So, you've got your 3 different ways of playing PvP, and you've got your 4 different ways of playing the game there. So, you'd think you cater to all of them, but what they're doing here is homogenizing again, and didn't I say this last week? Didn't I say that there was a serious homogenization problem going on here? No, not a serious pasteurization problem. Taurens are fine, don't worry about it, no rotting milk there. Cheese is cool, the cheese stands alone. But there's a homogenization problem that they're taking these 2 separate playstyles and they're trying to mold them into one. Do you want that? I don't know, because, I'm not a big instanced PvPer. I don't like that. I would like the idea of outdoor PvP, which is why I play Warhammer. I play Warhammer because Warhammer has keep sieges in RVR open battlegrounds and open objectives that actually make sense and are there for a reason. And it's set up to allow you to do that. It makes way more sense than the stuff that's done in WoW. I'm not going to fault WoW for that, because WoW is a PvE game. WoW has always been a PvE game. They tacked on PvP before they even released the game. But it was not part of the original design mandate. It's not what they wanted to do. They wanted to have a nice exploration dungeon crawling game. And why not? That's a good thing. That's what most people do anyway. You're telling me that the vast majority of level 70s don't raid? Because I would turn around and tell you to look at the facts. There are like 4.4 million people who have killed at least one boss in Karazhan. How many level 70s are there? Think about it. The majority of people have raided at some point, and have obviously enjoyed it enough to get a piece of loot. So, there you go. Now, I think that these playstyles need to be kept separate. I think that Battlegrounds need to be taken a whole different direction. They need to look at Battlegrounds and say, what is currently wrong with Battlegrounds? I mean, Warstone Gulch is pretty cool. Arathi Basin is pretty cool. AV is a mess, as is, in my opinion, Eye of the Storm. Those are things that need to be changed. If you're going to make AV a kind of PvE/PvP hybrid, which is what it was in the first place, then do it properly. Go the whole hog. Don't dumb it down. Don't keep taking out NPCs. Make it an actual merged hybrid battleground. Put the objectives back in. Put the cavalry charges in. Put the summoning the big ice lord in. Put all of this stuff back in the game. Put the troll NPC that you could get loot off. Put it all back in there. It's fun. It's interesting. No, it's not strictly PvP, but you got 3 other battlegrounds for that, and arenas for that, and Lake Wintergrass for that, and another battleground coming, You've already got that. You've got plenty of variety for those who want pure PvP. So let's have a little bit of hybrid back there. But let's not mix Battlegrounds and Arenas. Let's make them sufficiently different. You know, adding the PvE element, in my opinion, to AV would make them sufficiently different. That's kind of the thing. You know, if you're looking at Arena gear and BG gear, they're kind of the same. You know, that's the kind of thing that you really need. You know, the blue stuff that comes from BGs right now is terrible, because Arena gear gives you all you need in a battleground. In PvP, it is PvP gear through and through. That's what it's designed for. That's what it's good with. You really can't actually object to that. But don't mix them up. No, I mean, forcing people to do arenas is terrible. I like Battlegrounds. I don't like arenas. I think arenas are, like, the worst thing. I don't begrudge people that join arenas, but you know what? I redesigned the arena system. You can check that out at my forum, at Blue Plz forum. Just go to wcradio.com/forums. Go check it out. It's called It's a Top. You know, I redesigned the system, and I thought, you know, that was a better system, and that's the way it should go. And it should be kept totally separate from Battlegrounds, and try and keep it totally separate from raiding as well, because there's way too much mixing it up, there's way too much crossover, and it's harming the rest of the game. You're harming Battleground players here by pretty much forcing them to go into arenas to get Battleground gear. And yes, you are forcing them. No, they can't just go and get gear from elsewhere. Where are they going to get it from? You know, you really think they're going to go in there in PvE gear and get stomped? That's no fun. No one wants that. I don't know what they're thinking, to be brutally honest. I'm not sure what's going on in their head. But, well, they're Blizzard, and I'm not, and they get to make the decision. All I hope is that they see some sense and try to sufficiently diversify the playstyles, because both are legitimate, and there are people that enjoy doing both, and that is fine. You know, that is cool. You know, you should be very proud that you managed to develop a game which has got all these different playstyles in it. But merging them together, mixing them up, no, you're just going to alienate people. That's all that's going to happen. You're going to alienate people. People who do arenas anyway. They're not going to do it for BG gear, because the arena gear is good enough for it anyway. Why even bother? Never force people to do something they don't want to do, because they will resent you for it. My name is TotalBiscuit. This is Blue Plz on WoW Radio. In Flames with Trigger coming up right now, and I'll be right back after this, and we're talking about the future of raiding and Wrath. Enjoy.
You're listening to the archived recording of Blue Plz. Music was removed due to copyright reasons. If you'd like to hear the live music, then tune in live at 5:30 EST. That's 10:30 British Standard Time on Fridays at wcradio.com. My name is TotalBiscuit, and I'm the station owner of WoW Radio, and this is a public service announcement. Over the past few months, we've received a number of complaints from concerned mothers. Each time, the complaint is the same. Their son or daughter appears to have come down with a mysterious illness. Doctors are calling it savage fever. Its symptoms are many and varied. Those afflicted believe they're part of some crazed virtual world where RPG, RTS, FPS, and deadly melee combat combine into a clearly impossible gaming scenario. They've also been known to spout random phrases at inopportune social moments, including asking random passers-by if they're like bears with lasers, and breaking into random wicked guitar solos in the middle of the street before making explosion noises and overly dramatic hand gestures. Thankfully, this overly awesome illness now has a cure in the form of giant friggin' bats! Savage 2 is like the game you never thought could happen. If you like RTS, RPG, FPS, melee combat, squad play, siege warfare, base building, shape-shifting, wings that are like a shield of steel, and breathing acid in your enemy space, then S2 Games has the game for you. Savage 2 is a unique team-based multiplayer title, perhaps one of the most innovative ever created, and better yet, it's only $19.99. Grab it from s2games.com or add it to your Steam collection. Isn't it about time you caught Savage Fever?
Yes, the answer is you should catch Savage Fever. My name is TotalBiscuit, and this is WoW Radio, and this is my show, Blue Plz. Mine. Now, if you want to play Savage 2 with me after the show, I actually intend to go and do that. So, you want to come to Public Ventrilo. There's actually we do have a Ventrilo server. If you don't already know this, you can actually come on, discuss the shows, and we've got a really good gaming community there. So if you want to play some Dota, you want to play some Savage, or anything else, you know, just come on our Ventrilo server. We actually have the details on the front page for you. I will do you a service and read them out for you so that you can actually get on there and have a little bit of fun. So we're going to be playing Savage 2 after the show. We're going to go invade a server en masse. They will see the full wrath of our fans. Yes, they will. And me, but I'm not very good at the game, so the rest of you are going to have to shore me up on that one. The Ventrilo server is vent2.ugt-servers.com, of course, one of our proud sponsors. Vent2 2.ugt-servers.com. Port is 10024, and the password is public vent. Yes, that's all lowercase, public vent. If you didn't get all that, then you can check on IRC, because our IRC rep will post that for you. Thank you, Cooked Auto. And you will also be able to see it on our front page, wcradio.com. Go to the bottom right-hand corner. You will see it right there under Ventrilo. Now, less of that and more of this. I said I was going to read out a couple of emails about what might be coming up in BlizzCon, so I'm going to read out a couple of emails before I go on to my next topic, which is the future of raiding in Wrath and non-linear dynamically generated content. Ooh, it's a long word, it makes me sound clever, so that's why I'm going to talk about it, and it's show up my huge colossal ego. Actually, I've been having scaffolding put in lately, so it was kind of listing slightly to the left. It makes walking really difficult, and fitting through doors, nightmare, total nightmare. I had to knock out all of the walls, you know. I had the Soviet Murloc in here just to knock holes in the walls, just so I could actually move, you know. So I've got the workman crew on my ego, and they're pretty confident that they should be able to stabilize it pretty soon. But if they don't, I'll probably fall over sideways, and you won't be able to hear me because I'll be under the desk. Sorry about that, guys. Fortunately, I don't really know much about architecture, but I'm pretty confident that these guys know what they're doing. So here we go. We've got some emails about BlizzCon, so I'm going to see now. Here we go. This is from Stormtamer, he says, what I think we'll see are the movies at BlizzCon. BlizzCon 05 had the Warcraft movie announcement. Last year we had the panel that explained a bit about it. I think this year we might see some solid info about plot, actors, or maybe even a teaser trailer. There was also some info that appeared on the Legendary Pictures website last year that may be hinting at another movie. Under the upcoming movie sections on the site, one word appears among the other films, Diablo. BlizzPlan did an article on it, and it looked like an actual website slip-up, so might see a Diablo movie. Yeah, I suppose they could announce a movie. I don't know, would you be disappointed by that? You know, going to a gaming convention and what they announce is a bloody movie? I mean, we already know it's coming. We don't have a lot of details on it. Maybe a trailer, you know. I suppose we could see the trailer of it, but I don't know. That wouldn't get me all that fired up. Sure, I'd see it. You know, I'd be excited to see it. It's pretty cool that a video game is actually getting turned into a movie that probably won't suck. I don't know. But I don't think that would really get people fired up that much. But then again, I might be sorely underestimating the fanboyism of the community in general. Who cares? I've got one from Mihilo Jisic. That's an awesome name. It says, Blizz could make a Warcraft prequel or midquel. Midquel? What's a midquel? How does a midquel work exactly? I don't know, but prequel, yeah, that's entirely possible. I think making a sequel, that actually goes further on than what the WoW timeline is right now could be difficult. It could cause them a few issues, so I don't know whether or not that's going to happen. We'll have to see. It sounds like a reasonable bet. Now, I'm still going to put my money on Warcraft 4. Even though there are lore and background story issues and stuff like that, I'll have to see. I've got one more that I'll read. There's tons more, but I don't have time to read any of them. It's from Andy M, and he says, greetings to the cynical Brit from Germany. Assuming that there will be a huge announcement of BlizzCon and everything else would be, of course, a surprise, we should ask ourselves what would be bigger than the Diablo 3 announcement at WWI in Paris. Let's face it, if the BlizzCon announcement wouldn't be bigger than Diablo 3, they would have announced the latter at BlizzCon. As most of it by now know, there will be some huge events in Wrath story-wise, including the Wrathgate in Dragonblight. I won't go into further details, so I don't want to spoil it. Watch Wrathgate, guys, it's awesome. If you don't care about the storyline, watch it. Which might change in long terms the Horde. Alliance Dynamics, which... sorry, I can't barely read that. That's kind of a bit of a crazy sentence. And that is exactly what Blizz promised us after announcing Wrath. So let's ask if there could be anything bigger. After already announcing StarCraft 2 and Diablo 3, then, yeah, a fourth part in the Warcraft RTS series, another MMO, perhaps. But probably not as big as... probably not as big an announcement. Yeah, I suppose you're probably right there. I mean... Is Warcraft 4 really that big an announcement when you've got StarCraft 2 and Diablo 3 on the way? I mean, I'd say StarCraft 2 is a bigger announcement. StarCraft 2's been on a way longer hiatus, or the StarCraft series has been on a longer hiatus than Warcraft, so, I don't think that's a particularly huge thing, but it's still big. People are still going to buy it. So, yeah, I'm going to put my money on Warcraft 4 just because I like playing it safe. And as much as I want rock and roll racing online, I know it's not going to happen. Now, let's talk about raiding. This is what I like best about WoW. I think this is the best bit of WoW, and I don't think there's really any particular reason to dispute it, because there's a lot of content there. There's a lot of work in raiding, and raiding really came into its own and it became mainstream as a result of WoW. Raiding existed in previous games, including EverQuest and stuff like that, and you remember some ridiculous, 100-person raids and stuff. That's where Dragon Kill Points came from originally, DKP, because you went to kill these huge big dragons that barely ever spawned, and they needed a way to work out who got the loot, so they invented DKP. So yeah, raiding did exist, but WoW brought it into the mainstream, and yes, it did. Now, to argue that raiding is not a mainstream activity within WoW is bollocks, quite frankly. It's not. That just is simply factually inaccurate. If you believe WoW Jutsu, you've got 4.4 or so million people who've actively raided, and you've got how many level 70s? Well, of course, we don't really know that. We don't accurately know how many level 70s we've got, but I'd say that's going to be the majority. If it was 6 million, it would, of course, be the majority of the population in general, but if are you going to say that over half of the people playing WoW are level 70? Because I don't think so. Well, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. So, yeah, pretty much everyone's tried raiding at some point. Raiding is a lot of content. It's months and months worth of content. It's years for some guilds. You start at the bottom and you work your way all through, and the idea is to go into dungeons, get some cool loot by killing bosses. It's a pretty simple idea, but one that's worked so far. Now, Wrath of the Lich King is making it accessible, way more accessible, by allowing you to do all of the content in both 10 and 25-man versions. So it's like doing a heroic version of the instance by doing a 25-man. Now, initially, I expressed some slippery slope concerns, but after thinking for a while, I have managed to come up with a positive aspect of it. Now, here's what I'm thinking with 10 and 25-mans. The issue that's been happening up to now with raiding is that balancing raiding properly so that people can experience the content, but the end content is not too easy so that the hardcore guilds don't blaze through it in a matter of days, has been a sticking point for Blizzard, and they've had a lot of difficulty. They have used a lot of very nefarious means of doing so. Of course, we can look at Blackwing Lair, almost entire Blackwing Lair, past the first two bosses. We can look at Cthulhu as an issue there, and Oru as well. And we can look, of course, at a couple of things next. Stuff that was deliberately made too hard or deliberately bugged. Now, of course, you can't prove it, but do you really think that got past Q&A? No, it didn't. So I can't prove it, but I think there's a significant possibility that stuff wasn't exactly just left in there entirely by accident. But anyway, that stuff was in there and it delayed people. Now, thankfully in Naxx they started to level off with that because they had the 4 horsemen, which were not impossible, the requirements for them were just ridiculous. They weren't necessarily bugged. I think the initial version was bugged, but even when it was fixed, it took them ages to down that, and Kel'Thuzad was the same. Kel'Thuzad was relatively bug-free. Not entirely, but relatively bug-free. So, yeah. That was looking good. And then, of course, we now run into TBC, and we had a bunch of bug bosses all over the place. We didn't have too many broken bosses that looked like deliberate rooster blocks is the word that I've used in the past, and that's what I'm going to use again because I'm politically correct now. This is a family-friendly show. Really. I'm not kidding. It's a family-friendly show. Yeah, that was my joke for the day. You only get one joke, so there you go. Now, the problem is that they then decided to bring back these artificial rooster blocks, but they did it so in a different way, and they did it with the Sunwell. As you're well aware, there were various gates that wouldn't open, so they artificially delayed people from finishing the instance. Now, as we saw, Kel Jaden went down like a sack of potatoes. He went down so fast it wasn't even funny. Now, the entire instance could have been blitzed in a day, by the sounds of it. Once they'd worked out that, shamans equals win on Kalagos and stuff like that, the entire thing could have probably been blitzed in an entire day. And you know what? 3 months of development or whatever for something that gets blitzed in one day, that's bad. That is bad, so I entirely understand why they put that in there. But here, look. Think about it this way. Is it that they can't develop something hard enough, or is it that they won't develop something hard enough? That's a question for you. Is that what is really happening here? Ask yourself that. I would like to know. Is that what's happening? Because my theory, and I'm going to put it forward as a theory, is that they have dumbed the content down because they want a lot of people to see it. Yeah? I think that's what's happened, and they haven't made stuff that difficult. I think they can do a lot better. Now, with Wrath of the Lich King and the 10 and 25-man system, they have a unique opportunity. If you want to make dumbed-down content that everyone can access, okay, I'll concede it. Do it. But don't do it in 25-mans. Let them do the 10-mans. Make those the dumbed-down versions, and then look at the 25-mans. And then say, right, what can we do to make this the most difficult, challenging, rewarding experience we can? Because we wrote the book on raid design. Blizzard did. They wrote the book on raid design. You've seen it evolve all the way from Onyxia all the way to the latest Sunwell instance. You've seen how they've evolved it. They wrote the book, and they're good at it. They are really good at it. There's plenty of enjoyable instances. Sure, they've had their issues from time to time, but they're really good at designing cool raid encounters. So, I would think that this is a very cool opportunity to evolve raiding to the point of where 25 mans are genuinely difficult and it actually takes a long time to kill anything. Not because it's stupid, not because it's hard, but because they've introduced new mechanics and it's challenging. Pitch perfect. You've got to be perfect in every way. There's a couple of bosses that I remember from the old world that used to be like that. It'd be nice to see that again. Now, that's not all, though. I think that's enough for this expansion, but to be honest, for future development, particularly in this expansion when they release, and they inevitably will, when they release Ice Crown and stuff like that, which we know is not going to be in release, they had freely admitted that. Are we going to have the same kind of linear old dungeons? We had this discussion way back with when Black Temple was announced. It was announced as a non-linear dungeon, and we thought, hey, this is all the cool stuff they could do. They released it wasn't non-linear at all. Everyone does the bosses in the same order, it's just multiple ways of getting to the same place. And you have to kill the same bosses anyway. That's not non-linear, Really. It's like saying a maze is non-linear. There's only going to be one way out of it, one way or the other. So, no, it wasn't non-linear at all. Now, I'm going to talk briefly about an idea that I had that I was thinking over. And I call it, and I have a term for it, sadly it doesn't have a cool acronym, I call it non-linear dynamically generated raid content. Try saying that after 3 pickled eggs. Now, here's the idea. If you want to do raid content that is genuinely enjoyable to play multiple times over and over again and actually is non-linear, then you've got to look at the system and think, well, okay, what gives replay value? Well, have a look at 3 things. I believe it was 3 things, but I can't think of what the third thing was. Damn you, show notes! This is what I get for not writing down what I'm thinking about. I'm going to go for 2 things here. Now, have a think about this, right? You've got something in Karazhan by the name of the Opera event, and the Opera event has 3 different bosses, and they're randomly generated, so you can have any one of the 3 that week. Now, that keeps things a little bit interesting. What about we take that and we combine it with a different idea? We combine it with the idea of an instance which actually feels like a dungeon where you're being attacked. What instance did that best? Shattered Halls. Shattered Halls is a pretty unique example of instances that make you feel like you are genuinely being assaulted by people who are trying to defend the instance. You don't have people just wandering around on random patrol paths and aggroing you when you get within 20 feet. It's actually like a big fight. Now take that and combine that. Okay, so where are we now? We're there. Now take the idea of branching content. That means you start here, okay? Imagine that I have a piece of paper, and I'm starting at one end of the piece of paper. Now, if I were to talk about a basic dungeon, I would draw a line across that piece of paper. That's your dungeon. Now, let's talk about something like Black Temple. I would draw several lines across the piece of paper, but they'd all come to the end, and you'd have to go through round the whole set of lines anyway, because you have to kill all the bosses in the instance. Okay? Now, what about next? Well, we've basically divided the section into 4 pieces. We've got the piece of paper, we've done 4 little quadrants, but in the middle, there's your end target. You've got to get to the middle one way or the other, and in order to do that, you've got to run around the entire thing. It's like doing a circuit. You've got to do the entire circuit. You can't just do a bit of it, you've got to do the whole thing. So that's just the way it is. Now, let's change that. Let's shake that up. Let's have branching content. We start. Okay, we're here. Now you've got 2 paths you can take, and you can go down one or the other. So you go down one or the other, and you engage a boss. Now, once you've beaten that boss, the door closes. Yeah? The door behind you closes. And when you go back into the instance, you'll actually respawn, not at the start of the instance, but right there. Right when you've just killed the boss. That's where you're going to spawn. Now, let's take a third cool element of an old dungeon by the name of Zul'Gurub. Now, Hakar, a boss that you may be aware of. Hakar had the ability to have all of these different abilities that were associated with bosses that were in the instance, and those abilities would disappear when you killed those bosses. Yeah? Now, in reality, no one up until they had it on ridiculous farm actually didn't kill anything. That didn't happen. So, you were in a situation where the boss was really only ever killed one way. And that was kind of disappointing, because, you know what? Wouldn't it be cool if people had actually killed it, at least from the outset, in different ways? Most people just killed all the bosses in there, which cleared all of his abilities out, made him easy, so you just went and killed Hakar, and there, easy done. I'm going to come back with this after the break, because I am rapidly running out of time. I'm going to have a quick music break, and then we're going to come back to this topic, because I want to finish fleshing this out, because I think this is kind of cool, and it's something that should be implemented. As a raider, it's something I'd certainly be interested in. So I'm going to be right back after this. My name is TotalBiscuit. This is Blue Plz on WoW Radio, and this is Fintroll with Urzvamp. Yes, Urzvamp. 2-minute quick jig. Jigging is required, folks, in the channel. Mandatory. You get kicked if you don't. Enjoy.
You're listening to the archive recording of Blue Plz. Music was removed due to copyright reasons. If you'd like to hear the live music, then tune in live at 5:30 EST. That's 10:30 British Standard Time on Fridays at wcradio.com.
It's not brain surgery, it's just a radio station. Although we do mess with your head from time to time. From Tanaris all the way to Nomragon, this is WOW Radio.
Yes, indeed, folks. Let me tell you what I'm going to do for you, since we're rapidly running out of time. Bumper Edition Show! Since we don't actually have a Wild Things Considered today because Cat is off with his lovely wife in Paris, how very romantic of him. You know, it's got to show everyone else up, doesn't it? It's like, yeah, I'm going to Paris. How very romantic. I'm married. Well, so am I, but, you know, I didn't get to go to Paris. Meanie. So, yes, Bumper Edition. I want to cut into their time slot. Ha! So I'm going to give you, from now, an extra half an hour of show. Hell yeah, let's do it. Yeah! Feeling up to it. Now, okay, let's do this. Now, my idea. So let's go back to my idea, because I didn't really get an adequate amount of time to explain it. This is what I get for rambling on. It's entirely my fault. Very unprofessional of me. I'm very, very sorry. So, now, let's actually talk about it.
It's over 9,000!
Which is why it's taking so long to talk about. You know, Vegeta understands. So, this dynamically generated non-linear raid content. Here we go. Let's go back to what we said. We took the idea of linearity, and we took the idea of non-linearity, and we debunked the idea that Nax or Black Temple or anything else was actually non-linear, because it wasn't. You had the same end boss, you had to start at the same place, just because you went through it in a different order didn't make a blind bit of difference. It didn't affect the instance in any way. Now, let's take these ideas. First off, we start with the branching, okay? So, we start with the one entrance. You go in that entrance, and you get a choice of two possible paths to start with. So it forks off, yeah? And you go down those paths. Now, you will find trash. And that trash is going to be something which is appropriate to the boss. Now, we've seen it before in Nax, it's very effective. We've also seen it in places like Zul'Gurub. Trash tends to be, most of the time, appropriate to the boss. So, we do that, but we take it to another level. We decide that the trash is going to be geared towards specific kinds of raids, okay? So maybe a melee-heavy raid will have trash which favors melee, or might require heavy melee, a lot of tanks, or a lot of melee DPS. Maybe they have innate spell resistance, stuff like that. So they go down that path, and they get a pretty clear impression of what the boss is going to spit out at them. So they get down the path, and they get into the room, and there's your boss. Now they pick one of two paths. These paths are mutually exclusive, okay? So, you run into the boss. Now the boss is appropriate to the mobs that you just fought. So you've got a melee-friendly set of trash, you get a melee-friendly or melee-required boss. Now, what you can do, you can try and kill this boss. If you don't manage to kill it, you don't need to worry, because you can go and try the other one. Okay? If it sucks, if it doesn't work, you can go and try the other one. Go back down the path, back to the start of the instance, and go up the other path and try the other one. You know, you could pretty much expand this infinitely. You don't have to just start with 2. You can start with 4, you know, depending on whatever. Now, take the idea of her car, yeah? And take the idea of the bug trio. These are all nice little things that they're like tiny little occurrences. They're like anomalies in the raid design. They're like testing grounds for concepts and mechanics. Stuff that's actually been put into the game, but then never really used again. So let's think about the bug trio for a minute. What happened to the bug trio? Those of you not familiar with the bug trio, here they were called Vem, Kree, and Yauj, as I remember correctly. Now, Lord Kree, Princess Vem, Princess Yauj and Vem, yeah, and there were 3 bugs. And these bugs all had different abilities. Now, depending on the order in which you killed these bugs, depends on the loot that you got. Yeah, that changes. It changes depending on the order that you did them in. Now, that was a cool concept, and I liked that. There were certain orders that were more difficult than others and favoured certain raid setups. But some of the gear that you could get from it was pretty cool. Now, that's a concept for you. Now, I've already explained how her car works, so let's mix it up. Let's take those concepts and see how they would work together. So, you've gone down there, and say you've killed the first boss. Now, once you kill that boss, and you've proved that you can kill that boss, here's what happens. The gate to the other path closes. Yeah? So you cannot get through until next reset. You have proved that you can kill this boss. So, then we go on. Now, that does not mean that that entire path is locked off. Far from it. At some point in the instance, what I believe should happen is that you should be able to switch paths and go onto a different path. You'll have a crossover and you'll be able to go there. And it really depends on the boss. So there'll be certain bosses that favour certain things. Now, depending on the bosses that you killed, depends on the abilities that the end boss has. But you can't take them all away this time. It's not like a car. You can't kill all the bosses and have the end boss get really weak. You can take away certain abilities. And the way that you want to try and balance it is so that it favours certain kinds of raids. So say, if you have a melee heavy raid, you want to take away his ability to cleave. Or you want to take away his ability to war stomp. Or you want to take away his close range AoE. Or his ability to mitigate basic physical damage. If you have a magic heavy raid, you want to reduce his resistance to magic. You want to get rid of his AoE counterspell, or his mana burn, or anything like that. But you can't do both, okay? So you're going to have all these different abilities this boss can do, and you're going to be able to take away maybe roughly half of them. We'll start with the basics. We won't go into, hey, let's do 4 bosses per tier of this instance until you get to the end boss. Let's not do that. Let's start with something simple. So, you got your path. Let's say, in this instance, there are 12 bosses, yeah? Your first boss, everyone kills, yeah? He's your treasure boss, he's your loot boss, he's your reward for getting in there. Then you get your split off, and you get 5 bosses on each side. Now, there will be several opportunities to cross. You won't be able to do it all the time, you won't be able to swap every time, so there will be a magnitude of decision-making, You will have to perhaps miss out on some loot. You perhaps will have to miss out on this perfect combination of abilities. Let's say you're only allowed to cross 3 times, and there's 5 bosses, okay? So you can cross between the paths and you can do the bosses. Now, obviously each boss is going to have a different loot table, and each boss is going to have different abilities. And the gate is only going to close off when you kill that boss. When you prove that you can kill the boss with whatever ability, and it stops you from getting stuck, yeah? Because if you kill the wrong combination of bosses, you could end up getting completely shafted. Which is why you associate, and this was an idea of someone on Vent, so I'm going to thank whoever it was, I cannot remember your name, please tell me in IRC, and I will credit you on this idea, that the bosses have abilities which suit particular styles of raid. So therefore, if you can kill the boss, you should be able to kill the end boss, yeah? That's the idea. So you never screw yourself over that way. If you encounter a boss you can't beat, then you get a chance to swap over, because the gates don't close until the boss is entirely and completely killed. Now, what happens at the end? Well, you get different versions of the last boss, and it's all, a whole manner of different things. You could link this up quite nicely. You really could. You could come up with all sorts of different cool lore reasons for it. You could do all of this cool stuff with it. And the end boss would not only have different abilities, but different loot, depending on what. Now, this is a cool thing, because you can also tailor the loot to the kind of raid that you've got. If you've got a melee heavy raid, you can make sure that the melee heavy loot table comes into effect. You've killed the melee friendly bosses. You've got the melee friendly end boss. He drops lots of melee loot. Say if he's dropping 4 or 5 pieces of loot, you don't have to have it all be melee loot. You don't have to have it all be rogue swords or whatever. But you can influence it. You got more rogues, you got a melee heavy raid. So okay, let's let them do that. Let's let them be rewarded for that. Because that's a viable style of play. If you've got a magic heavy raid, a ranged caster heavy raid, let's do that too. We've got a healer heavy raid. Let's let them do that as well. Have a boss that requires a lot of healing that couldn't otherwise be done unless you had a healer heavy raid. And then we get healing gear drop at the end. There's so many different possibilities, and the great thing about this is that it's a concept that is infinitely expandable. You could effectively create an instance that would never be the same way twice. You could really mix it up, and it would be really fun. Now, in my opinion, this is the direction that raiding has to go, because raiding is good. It's good, but there hasn't been an awful lot of evolution. We saw evolution, the most of the evolution, at least in my opinion, happened in legacy content. Yeah? Most of the concept that we're seeing now were laid down in Blackwing Lair, AQ40, and Naxxramas. Yeah? Of course, with a little bit of AQ20 and Zul'Gurub thrown in there for good measure. So that's where you got the content from, that's where you got the mechanics, that's where you got the ideas from. And it was good. Whereas Burning Crusade introduced some cool new mechanics, but it certainly didn't innovate anywhere near as much as legacy content did. I think it's reaching a point where maybe they can't innovate anymore in their standard format, and they've got to mix the format up. They've got to make the raid instances more dynamic. And in my opinion, that would be a very cool thing to do. Really. I would absolutely enjoy doing that. It would be a lot of fun. And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. WoW's strength has always been raiding. You can take the concept of raiding and make it available for all. The 10 to 25 man tier system, if done correctly, will allow for this. I'm still not entirely of the opinion that 10 and 25-man raids should be 10-man easy, 25-man hard. I don't think that's the way it should be. I think small form raiding should be challenging. And indeed, Zulaman demonstrated that there can be some challenging encounters, and there can also be some challenging challenges. Yeah, that's redundant, isn't it? Department of Redundancy Department. Mr. Redundant speaking. How may I redundantly take your redundant call? It's had some challenges in there that were not just down to killing bosses. They were down to killing bosses at a certain speed. You can integrate that into the system too. Now, that's the cool thing about this system. You can integrate all of these different elements. Take the speed run element, put it in there, integrate that into the non-linear raid instance. And then you've got a situation whereby all of these different factors come into effect, and everything you do within the instance is not just about killing bosses anymore. It's about how fast you kill bosses, how well you kill bosses, and which bosses you decide to kill. And the amount, the kinds of people that you bring along to your raid, it's going to cater for a lot more of that. If you have a guild that is heavy on certain classes, you can bring them. So that will allow for guilds who are perhaps skilled but are lacking in certain kinds of players to still complete the instance. You don't have to make the instance easier. That's the nice thing about this concept. You don't have to make the instance easier in order to accommodate for guilds that perhaps don't have the optimum class balance. All you need to do is vary it up and make sure that the bosses that you are able to encounter will actually allow you to take a melee heavy or a ranged heavy or a healer heavy raid or a tank heavy raid, because you're going to get the choice of which bosses you take, and you're going to be able to tailor your end instance encounter to your raid. It's still going to be challenging, it's still going to be hard, but it's not going to be totally unfair. It's not going to say, no, you can't do this unless you have this, this, and this, because that's something that needs to go. This is something that we're going to be seeing back in Naxxramas, as you might imagine, particularly with 25-mans. You're going to be looking at dealing with the 4 horsemen. I don't know how they've changed the 4 horsemen, but if you remember back in the day, in 45-man raiding, 40-man raiding, you had the 4 horsemen requiring 8 tanks. Now that's pretty unreasonable, that's a pretty unreasonable requirement there, and it was a rooster block for a lot of people, for that reason. Get rid of that concept. That's an old school concept, and yeah, I don't care if the encounter was good, and it was. It doesn't matter, because that was an old school concept, and it really got in people's way. And that's not a good thing. It's an artificial block. It's not got anything to do with the skill of your raid, or the experience of your raid, or how good your guild is. It's about having 8 geared tanks. And that's not easy. That's not easy for any guild, even the Uber guilds. Most people tend to try and gear out 2 or 3 tanks pretty well, because that's the best thing. If one's off, okay. But you can't spread your gear around so much. It took a lot of farming to get the kind of gear that you needed to do that. Throw that out of the window and take this new concept, whereby you can tailor the encounters to your liking. And then you can have really challenging encounters with requirements, and then you can say that that's alright, because you're not forcing people to do it. It's like, you want an 8 tank encounter? Okay. But don't force people to do that 8 tank encounter. Force them to do it if they have 8 tanks, because if they have 8 tanks in their raid, and I can't imagine why they would, but let's just, hypothetically say that they had 8 tanks in their raid, and that's the boss they're going to be able to kill to get past the tiers. You've got your little branching thing, and you're going to tier your content off. And it's like, okay, first boss, and then you got the boss in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. No, it doesn't. Not equating to gear. Get that out of your mind. Tier actually means another thing. It's actually being ground into your head as meaning gear in WoW, but that's not necessarily true. So have a look at it. Have a think about it. You've got your level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and you can only pick 1 out of each of those levels. And if you have 8 tanks, take the boss that requires 8 tanks, and it's going to tailor the endgame encounter to be friendly to raiders that have 8 tanks in their raid for some inexplicable and highly implausible reason. But it doesn't matter, because having a optimally balanced raid shouldn't be as important as being good raiders. That should be the most important factor. Particularly now that you're throwing in yet another class into the mix, it might be even more difficult for people to get the appropriate kind of balance in their raid in order to take on the really difficult raid content. Sure, going to extremes is pretty silly. It's like you can't go in there with 24 healers and 1 tank and expect to win an encounter. No, let's be reasonable here. Let's use a bit of common sense. But, top-heavy raids, or raids that are just imbalanced in one way or another because they have a shortage or a glut of a particular class, they should not be necessarily penalised if they raid well. And this system could allow for loads of variety, loads of replayability. And it's funny because WoW has always been a game that's been very replayable, but has it actually been for the reasons of the game or because of the social aspect of it? Traditional game designers don't have that luxury. They don't have the luxury of people playing the game for 100, 200, 300 hours unless they add longevity to it, additional content, and replayability. WoW inherently has it, which is kind of an unfair fight, let's face it. But it would be nice for them to actually put something in the game which would be genuine, classic, old-school style replayability within raiding. Because raiding is something you do a lot of, and raiding is something that you're going to continue to do a lot of, I think, unless they decide to go down the PvP route, in which case, I'll see you in Warhammer Online. My name is TotalBiscuit, and this is Blue Plz here on WoW Radio. I'm going to play you one last track before the final section, which is, of course, the one and only Illusion of Choice. I love this track. This is in celebration of the game that I'm not going to buy because it's got horrible DRM on it. You'll know it when you hear it. Enjoy.
Hey, this is Brew Guy, also known as the Ganker. You're listening to WoW Radio on WCRadio.com.
No, I am not done. Now, this is actually rather amusing and somewhat slightly embarrassing. Yes, actually, Wild Things Considered is going to air today, just not with Cad. Dunkor's going to be on, I think, Speedy and probably some other random guy. So, yeah, sorry about that, but nobody tells me anything around here, really. You know, it would have been nice to have a note, a post-it. Carrier pigeon? Is it too much to ask for a carrier pigeon? Anyway, yeah, so they're going to be on directly after this last section. Yes, they are. It's going to be awesome, I hope. So, I have one last section to go, and it consists of this.
It's the illusion of choice.
Casper is here to take your pets and sell them on the black market. Yes, it's Illusion of Choice. Now, Illusion of Choice is where you pick the last topic for the show every week by emailing themurloc@gmail.com. Yes! So, someone has done that, and his name is Kyle McGorn. Yes. And he says this: Hello there, TotalBiscuit. That is the best typo I have ever seen. I'm going to change my name, for the rest of the show, and probably for the rest of the week, I'm going to be TotalBiscuit. Now, I am disgusted with the rubbish that's been going on in the Machinima McCollum on WoW Insider. It's absolutely disgusting. Totally disgusting, in fact. Oh, genius. You could not pay them to think up this stuff. Here we go. Now it says this: My new guildies of the Bloodhoof Brigands are listening in, and I hope they're not disappointed. Disappointed with me? Never. Anyway, a lot of people are seeing Lake Wintergrass PvP potential and perhaps not thinking all the way through in terms of rewards for controlling the battlefield. I see Wintergrass as an enlarged Halar with some things tacked on, including the new siege weapons. My question to you is this: There have been reports that controlling Wintergrass give an experience boost to the respective faction. What other kinds of rewards or perks should there be for controlling the lake? Should one faction holding it over a long period of time give an even larger reward? All servers have their PvPers, and Wintergrasp is bound to attract plenty of players, as long as it's not throbbingly broken. Okay, let me break. This is how Wintergrasp is going to go. Wintergrasp is going to be a copy of the RVR areas in War. Why? Because how else would they do it? I mean, really, think about it. You know, they've got siege weapons. Yeah, so's War. And you've got to bear in mind that this stuff was announced in War years ago, and was in the open beta, the closed beta even, years ago. This stuff was in there. They're going to copy it because it's good. And I'm not going to blame Blizzard for copying it, because everyone copies. I don't care if someone copies an idea and integrates it into their existing title, as long as it works, and as long as it's good, and as long as it's not overused. I'm looking at you, cover mechanics. I'm looking at you, randomly regenerating magical Jesus health bars. I'm looking at you! And I hate it. Anyway, that's not the point. That's something for TV show about video games. Sorry, I get kind of mixed up between the two right now. I'm actually doing two shows right now. If you hadn't already guessed, I do TV show about video games on Monday, which is at 1 p.m. EST. That's 6 p.m. British. And then, of course, I do Blue Plz. And they're supposed to be separate, but it's very hard, you know. It's like you've got your wife and then you've got your mistress, and you're trying to keep them apart, but you know at some point they're going to meet and they're going to end up kicking your ass. You know, that's just the way of it. That's how my shows are. They tend to fight and squabble all the time. It's handbags at door. So anyway, yeah, it's going to be like the RVR areas. I don't think it's really a question about it. There's nothing that I've seen of Wintergrasp so far that is not already done in War. And again, that's fine, because RVR areas in War and the keep sieges and the stuff like that are a great idea. The battlefield objective is a great idea. It works. Why not put it in WoW? I think, you know, it's cool. The only problem I've got is that if you put too much stuff into a game, then you can't focus on anything in particular. I assume they're probably not really going to have to do a lot with Wintergrasp. It's just going to be in there and that's it. Maybe they're just going to treat it like Halar. They're going to put it in the game and they're not really going to do anything with it, which is exactly what they did with Halar. But you've also got to bear in mind that Halar was a colossal failure. And really, aside from the organised battle, Halar is considered to be relatively irrelevant. No one really fights over it, except on RP servers and the occasional board PvPers. There is no real objective behind it. Now, yes, I think there will be bonuses in Wintergrasp, and if I recall correctly, those bonuses are going to be like continent-wide, and that's the way to do it. The bonuses, if you remember correctly, for the PvP areas in Burning Crusade were specific to the areas you were in. So you were looking at the zone you were in, and yes, you get bonuses then. But there wasn't really a massive reason to fight over them, primarily because the rewards weren't that great, you know. They really weren't. And again, not a PvP game. I'm not built as a PvP game. War is built as a PvP game, and it does all that kind of stuff fine. Now, you might ask, well, what does War do? Well, for controlling a keep in War, i.e. controlling an area, that's the only place that you can buy like high-level renowned gear and do renowned training and get all this stuff. You have to have one. You know, that's the thing. If you want to make people fight over something, make it necessary. Don't just make it nice, make it necessary. If you want them to be able to get specific stuff, make it necessary. Now, they tried that with Halar. The problem is the gear they gave you was terrible and awful and pointless. And you know what the worst thing was? You had to actually do PvE grinding in order to get some of the gear, because you had to acquire these blinking research tokens as well as the battle tokens. So it's like, oh, no, not good. We don't want to do that. When we want our PvP, we want our PvP. We don't want it mixed up. We want to go in there and PvP and get rewarded for it. We don't want to be told, yay, you've captured a law, now go and farm 500 of these and you can have something. By the time you got back there, they're probably taking it back. So yeah, you need Wintergrass to have something cool out or something essential. Now, they're doing that with the raid dungeon, but whether or not the raid dungeon is going to drop anything worthwhile, it's like, I just have this feeling that raid dungeon is going to end up just like Doomlord Kazakh and Doomwalker. It's going to be something that's kind of nice, but people don't go out of their way for it. It's like, hey, Doomlord Kazakh's up. We don't care. Same with the old Emerald Dragons and stuff like that. The world PvE content, the world bosses were not really all that desired, especially not after a while when better stuff came out, because the loot tables were never really updated, so no one cared. Now, they're going to have to put in some pretty serious rewards if they want people to continue to do Wintergrasp as a serious thing. Now, the problem they're going to have is that you can't have those rewards affect PvE so much that PvEers get annoyed. This is the balance that they have to strike. And this is the problem when you muck about with mixing up PvE and PvP. For instance, if there is a significant rep reward, or you are able to gather stuff like spirit shards, if you remember back in Terracar Forest, by taking towers and stuff like that in instances, then raiders are going to cry and scream bloody murder. And the reason they're going to do that is because their PvE experience is impacted by the fact that the PvPers can't do their job properly. You want to create a bunch of tension between PvEers and PvPers? There's a perfect way to do it. Have one affect the other. Really bad idea. Don't do that. Don't mix it. Now, if you look at a world bonus, as something like, hey, get a bit of extra XP, then that ceases to become relevant at level 80. So, it's not going to benefit all that many people. You've got to have something that constantly benefits people. So, maybe look at what War did. War gives extra gold. There's a good thing. That constantly benefits people. What about if it unlocked daily quests, and maybe the only way to gain rep with a specific faction was to actually have Wintergrasp? What about if it gave extra reputation with all factions, everything, benefit everything, why not? You've got to make these things really broad scale and broad spectrum, because otherwise people aren't interested. People are going to come up with their own reasons not to go in PvP and Wintergrasp. The one thing that you don't want is for them not to be doing it because it ain't worth it. It's got to be a personal choice. It's not going to be something that maybe they want to do, but they're discouraged from doing because the entire thing sucks. So, yeah, I think the instance will help. I think any continent-wide rewards will help. But you've got to look at stuff which is long-term and will work. As far as I'm concerned, long-term goals are great. Holding Wintergrasp for a long time should unlock some really cool stuff. Absolutely. And maybe it becomes a little bit rare. Maybe you never see it again. But the fact of the matter is you got to see it, and you thought, for once, just this once, I managed to affect the world in some way. And I'm happy about that. I really am. Now, got a couple of minutes left, folks, before I hand over to Wild Things Considered. I've got a few shout-outs to give out, so if you want some shout-outs, get in the IRC channel. That's irc.mmorc.com. It's #WowRadio. Alternatively, send me an email at themurloc@gmail.com. Now, we have shout-outs. Shout-out here from Carl McGaughan. He says, shout-out to my new guild, Bloodhoof Brigands, on the new servers, Sisters of Elune. Hugs for Kernhoof, but Sassine is still a sexy beast. That's from Solandis. I'm terrified. There seems to be an awful lot of guild loving going on, and you know what? That's going to result in guild babies, and that can't be a good thing. No, really. They'll end up deformed. They honestly will. Guild inbreeding has to stop. There must be some kind of law against this, really. Anyway, yes, so shout-outs. Get them to me on IRC or email them to me. I have a shout-out here. It's a shout-out from Loaded, and he recently started WHO on Dragonback Mountain, aka Brokeback Unofficial Russian Mountain. Being English, finding that out fails. Give a shout out to Abomination Guild, that's Combat, Biofish, Velvet and Dog. If you do, many thanks. That's from Loaded. There you go, you have it, and I have accepted my many thanks. Oh yes. Can I get a shout out to Bladescope Cyclone for his everlasting love of TB in his playlist? I love you. Get me away from the fanboys. Oh, but seriously, welcome back to Bladescope. He's actually been gone for a really long time. He's one of our old school listeners, and I'm missing out on the old school. We've lost kind of a few old school staff members. It's embarrassing. I'm like the longest serving staff member now. That's horrible. I never wanted that to happen. So, yeah. Old school listeners represent in the channel. Shout out to them, particularly Bladescope. Welcome back. It's good to have you back with us. It's good that we're still here. ZoMG, shout out to my friend for getting drunk on vent for getting his ged. What? What's a ged? Is it some kind of mammal? Was crazy fun recording him talking like an idiot. That's from Gowron7. Scary stuff. Shout out to Torin ate my grandma. That's great. On Burning Legion EU, they are the win. That's fantastic. And I'll never cease to amaze me, the originality of people these days. A shout out to Gloria Finnis Guild on Thunderhorn EU Alliance, please, from Dobmeister. It's a level 70 dwarf hunter. Now, I had an interesting email, actually. There we go. Scoob says, one of the people you argued with on the Movie Watch post is in my guild. Told him he got called more on a live radio, and he cried. Oh, that's such a shame. Look, seriously, I'm not a bad guy. I just hate everybody. I'm not discriminating. I'm very, very equal with my dispensation of hate. I don't like it when people talk rubbish about me and don't want to talk about the issues. It's like the current US presidential campaign. Politics, 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 That's all they want to talk about. They want to muck about. It's like, Sarah Palin doesn't have a nice hairdo. Barack Obama, may or may not be a secret Muslim. Talk about the country, please. Talk about the issues. It's the same with this. Stop arguing about stuff that doesn't matter. Take me on my issues, and I will respect you for that. Don't take me on my issues. Expect eternal mockery. I'm the one with the soapbox here. Sorry, I don't care if you don't like it. I'm the one with the soapbox. I can rant about you however I please. And you know what? Listeners are gonna love it. Hello, TB Ragaval here on Doomhammer EU. Can I get a shout out to all my guildies on Doomhammer in the guild Nephilim or Nephilim or Nephelheim? It's very complicated. And to my personal healer, Itro. Give Illidan's dead body on the floor. And by the way, Ask the Moloch Season 2, Episode 6 and 10 are the same. Whoops! I'll get that corrected. By the way, those of you who haven't heard Ask the Molochs, I've actually uploaded the entire season to the website. Go check it out in the archives. And last but not least, a shout out to Asuki on Arthas US. Good luck getting to 70 when Wrath of the Lich King comes out. That's from Gallier. Guys, I'm pretty much done. From the bumper edition of Blue Plz, a rather annoyed and belated Wow Things Considered crew coming up after that. Tell me next time, guys, really. I'll play a quick track to play us out. Something appropriate, something poignant, something important, something that I think we can all relate to, something that I think we all need to reflect on and think about. Good night.
You have been listening to the podcast and archive of Blue Plz, a show exclusive to WoW Radio. All WoW Radio shows are originally broadcast live, and you can listen to this one on Fridays at 5:30 EST, that's 10:30 British Standard Time, at wcradio.com. Your support is appreciated, and donations are always welcome via PayPal at wowradiodonations@gmail.com or via the donation button on our website. We appreciate your feedback. Feel free to review our shows on iTunes, rate us on dig.com, and post on the forums, where constructive criticism is always welcome. Thank you for listening.